The Palace of the Proud King, by Anonymous. The children slumber sweetly in their curtained beds, the brown dog snores upon the broad hearthstone, the cows chew the cud behind their screen of broom, and the fading firelight quivers on the grandsire's old armchair. This is the time, dear friends, when we should make the sign of the cross and murmur a prayer in secret for the souls of those that we have loved. Hark, midnight is striking from St. Michael's Church, midnight of Holy Pentecost. This is the hour when all true Christians lay down their heads upon their quiet pillows, content with that which God has given them, and sleep lulled by the gentle breathing of their slumbering children. But as for Peric's scorn, no little children had he. He was a daring young fellow, but as yet quite solitary. When he saw the gentry from the neighborhood coming to Mass on Sundays, he envied them their handsome horses with the silver-plated bridles, their velvet mantles, and their embroidered silken hose. He longed to be as rich as they were, that he also might have a seat covered with red leather in the church, and 168 be able to carry the fair farmer's daughters to the fair, seated on his horse's crupper. This is the reason Peric walked upon Lou Dres at the foot of St. Ephraim's Down, whilst all good Christians slept upon their beds, watched over by the Holy Virgin. Peric is a man hungering after greatness and luxury. The longings of his heart are countless, like the nests of the sea swallows in the sandy cliffs. The waves sighed sadly in the dark horizon, the crabs fed silently upon the bodies of the drowned. The wind that whistled in the rocks of Rock Ellas mimicked the colloquy of the smugglers of Lou Dres, but scorn still paced the shore. He looked upon the mountain, and recalled the words of the old beggar at Yar Cross. That old man knew all that had happened in these parts, when these our ancient oaks hung yet as acorns on their parent trees, and our oldest ravens still slumbered in the egg. Now the old beggar of Yar had told him that here, where now stretched the downs of St. Ephraim, a famous city formerly extended its ships, covered the wide ocean, and it was governed by a king whose scepter was a hazel wand that fashioned everything according to his wish. But the king and all his people were punished for their pride and iniquity, for one day 169, by God's command, the strand rose upwards like the bubbling of a boiling flood, and so engulfed the guilty city. But every year upon the night of Pentecost, a passage opens through the mountain with the first stroke of 12 o'clock, and shows an entrance to the monarch's palace. The all-powerful hazel wand may be discovered hanging in the furthest hall of this magnificent abode, but those who seek it must make haste, for, as the final stroke of midnight sounds upon the ear, the passage closes once again to open no more until the following Pentecost. Scorn had well remembered all the tale of the old beggar at the cross of Yar, and for this reason he treads at such unwonted hour the sands of the Lou Dres. At length a sharp stroke came dashing from the belfry of St. Michael's. Scorn trembled. He looked eagerly by the pale starlight at the granite mass which heads the mountain, and beheld it slowly open like the jaws of an awakening dragon. Scorn rushed into the passage, which at first seemed dark, but gradually gleamed with a blue light like that which hovers nightly over churchyard graves, and thus he found his way into a mighty palace, the marble front of which was sculptured like the church of Falgoat or of Quimperonth Audit 170. The first hall he entered was all full of chests heaped like the cornbins after harvest with the purest silver, but Peric's scorn wanted more than silver, and he passed it through the clock, sounded the 6th stroke of midnight. He found a second hall set round with coffers crammed with gold, as stable racks are crammed with blossoming grass in the sweet month of June, but Scorn wanted something better still, and he went on the 7th stroke sounded. The third hall to which he came had baskets flowing over with white pearls like milk in the broad derrapans of Cornwall in the early spring. Scorn would gladly have had some of these, but he heard the 8th stroke sounding, and he hurried on. The fourth hall was all glittering with diamond caskets shedding brighter light than all the furzy piles upon the hillocks of Doweren on St. John's Eve. Scorn was dazzled and hesitated for a moment, then rushed into the last hall as he heard the church clock for the 9th time. But there he stood still suddenly, with wondering admiration in front of the hazel wand, which hung in full sight at the further end, were ranged 100 maidens, most fair to look upon. They held in one hand wreaths of the green oak, and in the other cups of glowing wine. Scorn had 171, resisted silver, gold, pearls, and diamonds, but he was overpowered by the vision of these beauteous maidens, and he stood still to gaze at them, and at the sparkling cups they presented to him. The 10th stroke sounded, and he heard it not the 11th, and he still stood motionless. At last, just as he was about to hold out his hand to receive the cup from the maiden next to him, the 12th was heard as mournful as the great gun of a ship at wreck among the breakers. Then Peric, terrified, would fain have turned, but time for him was over. The doors, all closed, the 100 fair young girls were now so many granite statues, and all was once more folded up in darkness. This is the way our fathers tell the tale of scorn. You see now what will happen to a youth who suffers his heart too readily to open at seduction's voice. May all the young take warning by his fate. It is well to walk sometimes with eyes cast downwards to the earth, for fear we should be led into the paths of evil and sin. 172.